Today is Sunday, November 13th, 2016, and this is episode 177 of the Defensive Security Podcast. My name is Jerry Bell, and joining me tonight, as always, is Mr. Andrew Kellett.
Hello, Jerry. How are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
I am good. I know that yesterday was B-Sides Atlanta. You were there. I missed it. I heard it was epic.
It was awesome. Met a ton of great people, and I just want to say thank you to everybody I met. Had a good time.
I'm so sorry I missed it, but I had fun piloty things to do that, kind of were bucket list items that I really couldn't miss. So had to make a choice, and I chose not you.
Sound like a good choice, though.
But I hear people at least asked if I, where I was, which is nice.
That's true. I told them that you were in jail again. Yep.
Well, keeps the mystique alive.
That's right. That's right. So let's see. There's a couple of one little bit of housekeeping. I've gotten a lot of questions about this, especially for the past week. I've started, and actually, I think I'm almost done, including links to all the books I've talked about. Because yeah, I know somebody's a little cranky about that on our website, and not only that, but if you click on the link, it actually there's an affiliate code. So if you buy it through that link, we get some payola.
Oh, hey, look at that.
Yeah, that's right.
So this was your long play this whole time?
Well, it was. See, I came to the conclusion.
You've been fake reading all these books and pimping them out, so eventually we could, put up an affiliate code.
You got to have the exit plan, right?
Wow.
I mean, that evil island layer is not going to buy itself for me.
It's true. That is very true.
So yeah. Just a reminder, by the way, that the thoughts and opinions we express on the show are ours and do not represent those of our employers.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Because not all tech companies have been consolidated yet.
No, but we're working on it. So speaking of opinions, how about that election, huh? Can you imagine? I mean, I can't believe that there was even a question that Emacs would, like Vim is just it, right? Why would anybody in this day and age think that Emacs would win? I don't understand.
When we look back on this time, this will be the beginning of the second U.S. Civil War. And the violence in the shells just has to stop, Jerry. And your divisiveness over command line editing is not helping anyone.
Look, I'm just trying to make Unix great again.
I think we need to come together and get a unified kernel and just avoid, if we just had a centrally dictated editor that the government maintained for all of us, we wouldn't have these fights.
Wow. That's pretty deep.
And I honestly think that, you are causing kernel panics with your attitude, mister.
All right. Enough fluff.
Yeah. That was painful.
Yep. So yeah. Let's move on.
Please, can we?
Our first story comes from Ars Technica, and the title is Kaspersky accuses Microsoft of anti-competitive bundling of antivirus software.
Wait. Is it 1997 again?
I feel like I've seen this movie before. I don't know why. So
and where's Kaspersky based?
Oh my gosh, you're right. Russia.
That's right.
Holy cow! I didn't even think about that.
That's why I'm here. Actually, this is why I'm here to help.
You just blew my mind.
Coincidence? I don't think so.
There are no coincidences. That's right.
As we were talking about before the show, all correlation is causality.
Right. Just
anyway.
haven't got there yet. So anyway, Eugene Kaspersky wrote a manifesto about how horrible it is that Microsoft is pushing Windows Defender as an alternative to third-party antivirus, and he points out that
now this is specific to Windows 10, right?
Well, it was Windows 8 too. It was Windows 8 also, although Windows 10 makes it worse.
Right.
And I'll get into that a little bit. So, um, in the one of the challenges was that in the migration, the upgrade from Windows 8 to Windows 10, which was more or less, it wasn't mandatory, right? But you had to do it if you wanted to get the free upgrade. A lot of software like antivirus engines hadn't yet been ported to Windows 10, and so or the version that ran on Windows 8 wasn't compatible with Windows 10 and had to be upgraded separately. During the upgrade process, Windows would basically uninstall anything that wasn't compatible, and
Indeed.
and so a lot of antivirus products kind of got left in the dust, and now you have Windows Defender, and so
Now,
Kaspersky's. Oh, go ahead.
to be fair, this has not only occurred to Windows or to AV products, and there, if I recall, there was a pre-upgrade check that would tell you in advance of the various products that were not compatible with Windows 10 and would be uninstalled.
Yeah, and I think Kaspersky may have forgot about that.
Oh.
Yeah, maybe.
Hmm. But I guess what I'm saying is that Windows 10, and this is a challenge Microsoft has in general, is a lot of the baggage, security baggage Windows has is trying to maintain backwards compatibility. So I kind of, as bad as it sounds, I kind of have sympathy for Microsoft on this one. If they need to move forward, sometimes things are going to change at a fundamental level in the operating system that older versions of software aren't going to work, and then it's incumbent upon those third-party manufacturers to then you know migrate their software over to the new APIs or whatever libraries they need to call instead to work with Windows 10.
Right.
So why is this so different for Kaspersky now and Defender?
I think there's if you put yourself in Kaspersky's try that again Kaspersky's position, they're seeing this as something akin to to Internet Explorer back in what was it, Windows 95 or whatever, whichever version that was. That yeah, in that, for those who don't recall, right, the deal was that the browser makers, I think it was Netscape at the time, was basically saying that Microsoft was decimating the browser market by bundling a free browser with the with their web server, their operating system, and there was also a separate one about multimedia applications, and ultimately, what did that do? Right, if you look at the browser market today, right, they're all free. There is no, there basically is no commercial browsers, and I think that Kaspersky's kind of throwing the flag out, saying this is the way Microsoft is trying to drive antivirus too, saying that everywhere you turn, Windows is trying to reactivate Defender, right? So if your antivirus expires, it reactivates Defender. And by the way, it's kind of silly to think that it wouldn't, right?
Yeah, Microsoft has been taken to task so many times for weak security. One of the reasons, at least so they say, that they moved to this current model of Windows 10 of incremental releases as opposed to monolithic releases is to be able to adapt to security threats and other changes. And for instance, like EMET is going away, and they say, well, it's built into Windows 10 now, supposedly. I don't know. This is a tough one for me. And, if I think about it from a corporate environment, I seriously doubt any sizable corporation is going to ditch their commercial antivirus and go Windows Defender. I mean, it's possible, but I doubt it. So I don't know. I mean, are they more concerned about the commercial space or the consumer space? Because I can see this having more of an impact on the consumer side, but I imagine they make their money off corporate installs, really.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what Kaspersky's product mix is, or customer mix is. That'd be interesting. I know that, for instance, I think Symantec is very common or very popular in the enterprise space. So I
Yeah.
really I don't know what the Kaspersky mix is, if they're more heavily slanted towards consumers or enterprises. Don't really know. Maybe, by the way, maybe that's different based on countries, right? They may
That could
be
be.
they may be very big in Russia. I just don't know. Um, so
Antivirus gets you in Russia. That's
Yes, the joke had to be said.
That's my job.
Yeah, yeah. So the thing that I really wanted to talk about with this particular story, and I'm seeing this become a big concern, is within Windows 10. So we talked a little bit about how uh, the move from Windows 8 to Windows 10 broke a lot of things, but it's happening within Windows 10 itself. Right, so with the anniversary update and then some of the previous updates, one of the things that Kaspersky is calling out is he's trying to get regulators to force Microsoft to offer uh, these preview code basically of soon to be released updates to the third party vendors so they can make sure their code works. And you can kind of see both ways, right? You can see both sides of the fence because on the one hand, Microsoft wants to get they're trying to simplify their update process, and so they're trying to
and
get
and and speed it up.
and speed it up, and they're trying to get that stuff out the door faster. But on the other hand, when you do that, as Kaspersky points out here, the companies like Kaspersky literally have days to make their antivirus work with the new update to Windows, which they often can't do. And so this is the point that I wanted to bring up because I'm seeing this in spades. It's becoming a real big problem, and it's not just with Windows. We're seeing it similar problems on Mac. Us in the information security business, we have a lot of agents, right? We have our DLP agents and our antivirus agents and our EDR agents and this agent and that agent. And my observation is that a lot of these things are becoming kind of pinned to a particular version, and they don't work at post not major version update, but even minor minor updates. And that's a big problem because now we're in a position in the security world where it's not just like preparing to go from Windows XP to Windows 7 and making sure all your stuff works. Like every time some major Windows update comes out, you got to figure out, do I withhold that because my DLP agent breaks, or do I push it forward because it also contains some really critical functionality, and I'm just going to have to live without DLP for a while. And this is becoming a big problem.
It is in enterprise environments. So I would say that they're relatively cautious about rolling out OS upgrades. And they're cautious about pushing stuff out there because they want to test. But we're running out of that option. We can't easily delay these sorts of patches anymore, especially when we're talking about things like the latest anniversary update. Most enterprises don't even think on Windows 10 yet, but they're going to be soon. And when you look at something like the anniversary update that came out, that's almost a service pack level, or it is a service pack level push or bigger. And normally that's something that would be tested extensively in an enterprise before rolling out. But the way the patch situation is starting to flow, I don't know that they're going to have too many options if they want to stay current with patches. The way things are going, I guess it remains to be seen how Windows 10 flows, but I don't think they're going to keep issuing patches for pre-anniversary update, for instance, forever.
No, that's for sure. And I guess what I'm seeing is it can take 30 to 60 days for some of these third-party vendors to really support for a new like anniversary update, and that's a big problem. That's a real big problem in the enterprise space. So I agree that Windows 10 doesn't have a large penetration in enterprises yet, but Microsoft is, they are putting a gun to businesses' heads.
It's coming. Yeah, you're not going to have much of a choice.
Right. The train has left the station.
Yes. It'll be interesting to watch. I think you bring up an interesting point. I don't necessarily think Microsoft's being malicious here. I think they're probably just being short-sighted.
I do want to give one quote here. In kind of paraphrasing a little bit, but in Kaspersky's eyes, Microsoft is building a totalitarian police state platform in which there's no place for independent developers or freedom of choice for users. End quote.
Well,
Yeah.
they're from Russia. They would know.
And then they go, the author here goes on to point out that Kaspersky's effectively, other than trying to get the regulators to force Microsoft to provide more lead time to third parties, the other angle of making Microsoft not release Defender kind of smacks of Windows N, and they point out that Microsoft paid a huge fine, and then they had to release Windows N, which had no browser in it. Actually, it was no media player. Sorry, and
Right. That was just for Europe, wasn't it?
it was just for Europe, but nobody used it.
Right.
So they had to they had to respin a whole new version, and really nobody wanted it. So which I suspect will be the case here too. So again, Kaspersky and Microsoft and Symantec and others are going to have to work this out. My concern is the challenges I'm seeing from an enterprise side with these tools. I don't have the answer yet. I'm interested if other people are seeing this too. Hit me up on Twitter or send us an email.
Indeed.
So moving on to our next story. This one comes from Naked Security, and it's the title here is Yahoo staff knew they were breached 2 years ago. So we talked a little bit about this, I don't know, a month or more ago. Yahoo back in 2014 had, I think it was 500 million records stolen. So one of the largest breaches in history. And at the time, it appeared like, they had just figured this out, right? And there's not a lot of detail on how it happened and blah blah blah. And coincidentally, by the way, there was another kind of apparently separate track where what was alleged to be the NSA or some U.S. government intelligence agency mucking around with their systems to allow access to customer content.
I think we established earlier there are no coincidences.
That's right.
To be consistent.
So in Yahoo's 10Q report, which is a quarterly filing that all public companies in the U.S. have to submit to the Securities and Exchange Commission, they pointed out that the company had identified the state-sponsored actor on the company's network in late 2014, but they don't go into any more detail than that. Which the implication behind that statement is that they did know there were people in Yahoo who in 2014 knew that this breach had happened. However, it didn't come out until this year.
Right.
And that's pretty big. That's pretty big news.
It is. And go on, but I like the quote too that the person familiar with the investigation has to say.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that they say that they originally did not have a quote-unquote full picture of what happened because of the, quote, sophisticated nature of state-sponsored attacks. This seems to be the current PR get-out-of-jail-free card right now of, calling everything a sophisticated state-sponsored attack or an APT. So how can I possibly have done anything? It was state-sponsored and sophisticated.
We couldn't even detect it.
And Kevin Mandy had told me it was okay.
So, there's not a ton of detail in here, but there was one thing that I found really interesting. Yahoo, and this is a quote from the article, Yahoo said that forensic experts are also investigating evidence that points to an intruder believed to be the same state-sponsored actor it thinks is responsible for the 2014 breach, having created cookies that could have enabled them to bypass passwords in order to get to users' accounts for information. Now, that last part is the deal that Alex Stamos apparently allegedly resigned his post as CISO over. Mm-hmm. And so there's the article doesn't kind of hit this head on, right? But
Right, because Alex was pushing for a wholesale reset of passwords, which would have fixed this persistent cookie issue in theory,
maybe,
maybe, possibly.
possibly, right?
So
But
if we're trying to connect these dots, we're saying that, he wanted a wholesale password reset. Management pushed back and said no.
yeah,
And rumor has it that's one of the reasons he left.
right. But I think if this that's true, and I think the other
Mm-hmm.
implication behind this statement is if this investigation does point out that or does conclude that it was the same actor, that the actor that apparently planted those cookies was in fact the NSA, and that kind of is implying that the NSA was also the one who stole the 500 million records.
Interesting. Does that also imply that certain executives at Yahoo were aware that it was the NSA and
Yes, actually,
purposefully shut down their own people from fixing it?
there was some other discussions about that too. Yes,
I mean, we're clearly in the land of speculation here.
absolutely,
So let's be clear on that. We don't know that to be true.
right.
Now, what's also interesting is Verizon is looking to buy Yahoo. So last I heard, Verizon is asking for a discount or may even back out of the deal. Of course, again, that's speculation, but could be interesting.
Yeah, I think the headlines, and I don't know if this came from Verizon themselves or what, but the headlines I had read I guess this was a couple of weeks ago now, but Verizon was pushing for a $1 billion discount, which was something like 20% off of the purchase price of Yahoo. That's pretty
Well,
pretty
did they have
significant.
the coupon? I mean, was that like a Groupon deal or?
I don't know. It could be.
Hmm. Hmm.
Could be.
Yeah, I mean, if the coupon's valid, I think they should honor it.
The thing that interests me a little bit is right where we're finding a bunch of major breaches that have happened years ago, right? And we don't always. It's very difficult to kind of go back, rewind in time, and figure out what happened. But there's also been this either overt or implicit uh, assertion that these state-sponsored attacks are perpetrated by Iran and North Korea or Russia or China, right? And this is the first one I've seen that is insinuating. It's not saying it directly, but it's insinuating that it was the U.S. So
Which is interesting. You could see that again. We are so in speculation land. But to me, the only reason they would probably have done that is if they were looking for specific activity through Yahoo that they felt was interesting from a national defense standpoint. Not defending NSA, but I'm saying that seems to be the only reason I can think of that they would go after a U.S. company is if they wanted access to some sort of data that a foreign potential hostile entity had on Yahoo.
yeah, and to be honest, right? The NSA is going to do what the NSA is going to do. I'm not trying to to pull out the aluminum foil and craft hats here. My
Too
my
late.
yeah, my the reason I bring it up is what is I just wonder what is the liability in the instance or in the event where a company detects an intrusion by the NSA.
In the U.S., a U.S. company
Yeah.
detecting that's a hell of a complicated question.
And and
Uh,
it so in this case,
you know,
right, 500 million records. If what where and I'm obviously not a lawyer, right? But I just wonder where would this go? Would attorneys general still sue Yahoo?
I don't know. If you really play this out, let's say it was the NSA that took the records. Could private board level discussions say, look, we're not worried about it because it's the government who has it. It's not a foreign power or a hacker or something. Does that, allow for backroom conversations that say, look, this is not that big a deal. We've got to play this out in the public as such, but we know what happened. We know who did it. And it was our own government. So relax.
And by the way, they may not even be allowed to talk about it, right? So if
Yeah.
they come if they realize it and they call up their buddy and then they end up getting a national security letter, they may not even be allowed to disclose that they had that discussion. So it's a
Yeah.
really interesting and complicated knot. But so our next story, by the way, is one that probably was not from the NSA.
Why? They like to have friends too.
Yeah, so this story here is from CSO Online, and the title is 412 million Friend Finder accounts exposed by hackers.
So Jerry, for those who don't know, can you tell us about Friend Finder?
Well, it as far as I can tell, it's very much like Ashley Madison, but maybe there's actually people, like both real males and females, I think.
Mm.
So yeah, it's a hookup site basically, right? It's a
Yeah. And
online.
has it worked out well for you?
No,
Oh,
I don't use it. So
well, keep trying. Keep trying. I'm sure somebody eventually will answer your ad. I'm sure.
sure,
Hmm. So
sure.
412 million accounts.
412 million. And what was interesting here is that the breach was apparently the result of a vulnerability somebody found and reported to Adult Friend Finder. And shortly after it, things kind of unraveled. And it's not entirely clear if the person who disclosed the vulnerability was the one who stole it, sold the data. But what was interesting was that the discloser, a person named Revolver, or that was his or her handle, said that he confirmed that the vulnerability had been fixed and that he hadn't taken any data from the customer site. But then subsequent to that, I guess some data started showing up on some online forums, and so this data has the normal stuff, right? Email addresses, passwords, many of which apparently were not well stored, right? So they're SHA-1. Some of them were salted. Some of them were stored as plain text.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, there's really no clear indication of why. They did point out that, and this is interesting. Apparently, Adult Friend Finder changed the password case all to lowercase before they stored it. So, yeah,
That's excellent. That's helpful. That's real.
pretty
Thank
amazing.
you, Adult Friend Finder. Thank you.
And apparently, they also kind of like Ashley Madison. They didn't actually delete accounts that want to be deleted. So I mean, it's not entirely clear, but it appears to be the case that there are accounts that look like they're flagged to be deleted and included in the dump. So this just keeps happening, and they point out that by the way, in that 412 million population, there are 78,301 accounts with a .mil email address.
Wow.
5,650 with a .gov address. And we clearly do not teach our government officials very well.
Well, you can't assume that all that is just, being thoughtless. It could be intentional for some nefarious purpose that we just don't understand yet.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it would be interesting to
Could be some psyops going on. It could be
right.
all sorts of stuff.
Like honeypots, right? See if
Mhm.
one of them gets a blackmail threat. I mean, that's one of the concerns here, right? Is
Mhm.
we saw this with Ashley Madison, right? People started to get blackmail letters, and I think
It's
they're
true.
actually still getting blackmail letters.
But I think you can counter that with, "It's okay, honey. There were no actual women on the site. They were all bots."
That's true. That's
And
true. I knew that it was an experiment.
hence, we now have Westworld.
Okay.
You don't have HBO. People
I don't.
who do would find that joke hilarious. You, culturally. Anyway, the other thing, that I thought really interesting was according to Friend Find Networks, right? And they own that. There were some other sites that this was from Adult Friend Finder, Cams.com, Penthouse.com, iCams.com, StripShow.com, Jerry'sMom.com. There's a lot of stuff here, but the one that
Wait
was
a
really
minute.
interesting to me was no, that was fine. We're going to keep going. 700 million total users. Check this out, spread across 49,000 websites.
That's incredible.
49,000 individual websites. Wow.
That's unreal.
And they have 3 web admins to run the whole thing. No, I
Well,
don't know that to be true.
no wonder they got hacked.
That's amazing to me that they've got that much specialized individual properties.
Yeah, I think one of the one of the lessons I think here is if you have a big concentration of users, you're gonna be, no matter how pedestrian you think your site is, you're probably a target for someone, and it's unclear. This could have been Russia or China or somebody who wanted to blackmail people, or it could have been somebody who was using SQL map. I mean, there's
Somebody just wanted to find a friend and wanted to do it a lot more efficiently.
well, that's true. 400 million friends, in fact.
Now they can run some queries and narrow it down really specific and targeted emails.
Yeah, but anyway, point being, if you're going to have that kind of concentration, you should probably invest a little more effort in running assessments against your site. I mean, this appears like a pretty basic
Fair enough.
local file inclusion vulnerability that
But
would
look, they had 49,000 sites. They were getting there. They do one a month. It takes time.
they would they would have gotten there. They would have gotten it fixed sometime the year 2300.
Yeah, the other thought that came to my mind is we have seen this over and over and over again where we get these huge user database dumps. And once again, how many more times can we say this is why we should be using password managers with unique passwords per site? Because just assume your password is going to get dumped. And if you're using the same password on every site, that's bad news bears.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's the least common denominator. I don't know what to say if you're not using a password manager.
But so few people actually are. I mean, it's still a very common refrain. Hell, I've been at companies where installing a password manager was not approved software. Those are interesting conversations.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just for personal. I mean, how often are people reusing the same password on these personal sites as they're using in their corporate environment for certain things, or mixtures thereof? They're forced to change it every 90 days, so they increment it by 1 on the end, to keep it rotating. But again, this is how people are getting into environments. Is one of the main ways is password capture and reuse. So it's an issue.
Yeah. Yeah. I suspect this will be. It's probably not the appropriate time to be buying stock in this company. That's what I'm thinking.
We have friends who would argue very convincingly that breaches do not affect stock prices long term.
No, but I suspect this company is going to get a pretty big fine, and after the fine, then yes, you can invest away.
Well, maybe you buy it on the dip.
Well,
By the
whatever.
way, this show does not constitute any financial advice.
That's right. Please seek the advice of a financial planner.
Yeah, we do not have a fiduciary responsibility to any of you. Well, maybe that one person.
Yeah.
Everybody else, you're on your own.
That's right. I mean, until we have those payments made.
Well, let me put it this way: our advice is worth exactly what you're paying for it.
True. That's a good point. So that was the story, or the stories for tonight. Wow, can't talk.
Well, it's because it's late on a Sunday and we've had a busy week, and
Yeah.
These things happen.
That's right.
We wait until we are completely worn out to do this show to give our listeners the best version of ourselves.
It's very true. Painfully true. So anyway, by the way, just I should have mentioned this at the beginning. Our Slack channel is rocking. So if you're not familiar with it, get in there. It's pretty cool.
It's true. I have been woefully inadequate in hanging out in the Slack channel. I will try to do better.
Although I will tell you, it's getting a little out of hand, right? Because I have Twitter, I have Slack, I've got a group that has me tied into this thing called Discord, which is like Slack. And then you have the text messaging, and it's just overwhelming. Like, I don't even know when I have time to work anymore. So,
this could explain why your boss is a little unhappy with you.
Could be, yeah.
No, I mean, the nice thing about Slack is it's not about you and I. It's about listeners talking to each other and learning from each other and sharing ideas. And if you're not familiar with Slack, and believe it or not, I wasn't until a couple of months ago because I'm lame and old, it's kind of like a grown-up IRC. It's persistent messaging in a group, and good for groups. It was really built, I guess, for teams to chat and talk, but it's a lot like IRC to me. It's just you don't lose the messages when you're not in the channel at that particular time. You can always scroll back and see what was going on and what was said, and so it's cool. But I mean, I like the fact that folks are trading info and bouncing ideas off each other and finding help from other fans of the show, and building a bit of a community there, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, there's people that are talking about studying for the OSCP exam, and yeah, so it seems like a pretty cool thing. So check it out. You can find links to that and to all of the stories we talked about today on our website at www.defensivesecurity.org. Also include a link to the book section, so you can find that. And by the way, I'll just mention that my new book is How to Measure Anything in Cybersecurity. So that's what I'm reading right now.
I see. And any early quick reviews?
Well, I read the predecessor book, which was How to Measure Anything in Business, and it's good, right? It's worth the read.
Okay.
So, yeah, you can follow the show on Twitter at DefensiveSec. You can follow Mr. Kellett on Twitter at Lurg, and me on Twitter at MaliciousLink. And with that, we will talk again next week.
Have a great week, everybody. Thanks always for listening. Oh, yeah, quick shout out to our Patreon donors. You guys are awesome.
Yes, thank you very much. That's right. Take care. Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.